fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren. Got Smoker Joe here today, and you haven't been able to smoke for a while. Hey, your deck's still not done.
I know, the deck project goes on. I am going to be cooking now. I'm going to be doing this in a couple of weeks here. I'm pulling the smoker out or turning it on, and I'm going to enjoy the last days here of non-freezing weather, hopefully.
Oh, but that'll be too late.
I know. I've cooked in the snow, so it's okay.
That's it. Just put your foot down and smoke.
It's warm. Stand in the smoke. Yeah, kind of like Paul here. It's nonstop. 24 books. He's on fire.
Burning. See, that's what it's.
He's burning. He's burning. That's right. He's burning the midnight oil.
Yeah, it's the midnight burning. Some Einstein Chaplin thriller.
That's a great segue. Come on, that's Hall of Fame. That's Columbia Broadcasting. Yeah.
Paul Levine, thank you for being here.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, guys. Thank you so much. Like most writers, we enjoy talking about ourselves and our work.
Yeah, now that you bring it up, Paul, let me talk about my book.
Yeah. The show is all about Joe.
Yeah, I only ask questions that help me. And I got a couple written down already, so go ahead.
So, Paul, what brought you to this story? How did you get here?
Well, it really was 20 years in the making. About 20 years ago, I came across a photograph of Albert Einstein and Charlie Chaplin in tuxedos walking into a movie theater. And I looked at that, and it was a 1931 photograph. It was the night of the premiere of City Lights in Los Angeles, in a theater that Charlie Chaplin actually built. And my first thought was, these might have been the two most famous people in the world in the 30s. What are they doing palling around together? And it just sort of lit my imagination, but it took a long time for me to figure out that they were friends. And I still needed a story. Having friends, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid still needed a story. They had to rob banks. And I didn't get a story until I learned about the fascist movement in Los Angeles in the 1930s that targeted a number of celebrities, including Chaplin for assassination, and was attempting to ignite an insurrection against the U.S. government. And then I had a story.
Yeah, it just happened that I saw a movie, a Chaplin movie, which I haven't seen in years, Monsieur Verdot. And it was sort of in reference to this. And at the time, boy, had a hopper that just like everybody was out for him. They all thought he was a communist.
You're talking about the Chaplin film later in his life. Chaplin had to fend off J. Edgar Hoover for 30 years as Hoover wanted to either prosecute him or deport him for his communist sympathies. Hoover actually plays a role in Midnight Burning because the FBI was aware of these fascist movements in the United States, but they were so busy trying to find communists in Hollywood and elsewhere that Hoover gave really no concern to the much more dangerous fascists. Most of the communists, and there certainly were sitting around drinking coffee and talking about how great Moscow was. They were pretty ill-informed, but they were not breaking into armories, stealing machine guns, and attempting to overthrow the U.S. government, which actually gave me the motivation, or gave my heroes the motivation, Chaplin, Einstein, and then another real character, Georgianne Robinson, the first black female cop on the LAPD, and she's a real character. So they had to take matters into their own hands.
How is it you face the challenge of writing these three main characters in dialogue and in your own words when you're all quite different from each other? Like, what's your approach on that?
Well, the research was pretty daunting. And for me, it was really new. I had written 24 legal thrillers, and I'm a former trial lawyer. So not a lot of research was needed to pick a jury in a homicide trial. But your question, and it's a great one, is, okay, it's the 1930s. It's two people who were really well known, who had a lot written about them, and in Einstein's case, wrote a lot himself. In Chaplin's case, his work is still there. So a lot of research, and then I attempted, whenever possible, to take things they actually said and use them. You have to massage the language a little bit. They both had great senses of humor. So even though this is a book about fighting off fascists and an insurrection, there's a lot of banter and sly wit that goes on between the two heroes.
Hey, Paul, let me ask a question. It was just kind of related, or if not closer to that answer, is what is your overall approach to creating historical fiction? You know, it seems like you are I'm taking everything in reality and I'm just going to, do the dialogue as opposed to sticking a fictitious person into a historical setting.
Well, I've done a mixture of fact and fiction. I think we can say inspired by a true story, because it is. We have those three real characters, Einstein, Chaplin, Sargent, Georgia Ann Robinson. William Randolph Hearst plays a role in the book. Charles Lindbergh plays a role in the book. And in his case, and this relates to your earlier question, I took things that Lindbergh said in a couple of very famous radio addresses, which were blatantly anti-British, anti-Roosevelt, and anti-Semitic, when he's trying to keep the United States not just from getting into the war that's about to happen in Europe, but to keep the United States from even helping Britain against Nazi Germany. So in a scene at the German consulate, for example, Einstein and Chaplin see Lindbergh. They all knew each other. It's interesting that in those days, celebrities all seem to gather together, whether it's at the Brown Derby in Los Angeles or they'd be invited up to San Simeon, William Randolph Hearst estate and mansion up the coast here from where I live. And Chaplin said, "Oh, there's Lindy. Let's go talk to him." And Einstein says, "What, again? We're going to have to hear about eugenics?" So that's a real thing. Not that dialogue took place, but Lindbergh was a big proponent of eugenics, which also Nazi Germany believed in. And it's a weaving of fiction that could be fact, that's credible, that people aren't going to say, Einstein would never have said that. At least that's my hope.
Now, you've got these three main characters that are well known in the story, but you've also got like a crime thriller going on. So maybe for the listeners, let's explain what's the premise of this story.
The basic premise is that sort of unknown to the general public at the time, and again, the FBI being unconcerned about a fascist movement that had summer camps that looked like Hitler youth camps, that had gatherings of the Silver Legion of America and the German-American Bund, who were not just friendship organizations to Germany, but who were actively planning an insurrection to overthrow the U.S. government. That was one plan. Another plan was just, well, once Hitler conquers Europe, if the United States sits out the war, we'll just be friends with Hitler. And there was actually a plan for I guess you'd call it not a Western White House, what would you call it, for Hitler to have a house in Los Angeles in the Pacific Palisades. And against that backdrop, these two famous people, the genius in the Tramp and the trailblazing cop, have to fight against overwhelming odds, because true then and true now, the struggle for democracy never ends. It's always threatened in one way or another, whether you're in an actual war or not.
It's really strange to think about how at the time American society thought that the Nazism and that whole anti-Semitic behavior was okay. It was okay to behave that way.
Well, the Nuremberg laws had been passed. Both on the East Coast, a very, very famous rally at Madison Square Garden with 20,000 people saying Heil Hitler and saluting a gigantic photograph of Hitler. and on the West Coast, the Silver Legion of America plotting this insurrection, plotting to knock over these armories with machine guns, to kill Charlie Chaplin and Samuel Goldwyn and Mayer and these other prominent, mostly Jewish, not all Jewish, moguls in Hollywood, machine gun them and then hang their bodies in MacArthur Park. This is the plan. It sounds like really bad fiction, but this was the plan.
Paul, when you started this book, did you have an idea of not the plot, but the thematics behind it? Did you say the struggle for democracy, fight for freedom is my underlying theme here? That just kind of developed as you were going on.
Yes, the latter. My number one goal is to entertain, and I don't want to say that as when I say it, it sounds pretty frivolous. But when I became interested in the two men, the genius and the tramp, it was because, this is very cool that these very different people had something they shared, which was a commitment to social justice, and they were both really outsiders. Einstein, of course, fled Germany in 1933. J. Edgar Hoover tried to stop him from getting an entry visa back in 33 on the grounds that he attended this communist conference, which he did not. And then later had Einstein surveilled because he started the International Rescue Commission, a communist front. Well, Eleanor Roosevelt started it with him. It was to help get people out of Nazi Germany. Chaplin grew up in horrific circumstances in London. His father died when he was very, very young. His mother was in and out of mental institutions. Chaplin was in and out of what they called workhouses, which were basically orphanage where the children had to work. They were both these outsiders, as was Georgianne Robinson. When you're the one and only black female cop on a police force of the size of LAPD, you're also an outsider. So to me, it always starts with character, not plot. I have the characters. Now, where's the plot? The fact that it does say something about the fight for democracy just sort of was naturally organic to the story.
I would imagine that also the time period ends up being like a character as well, because you have to fill in so many of the details of what was going on at that time in that area.
Yes, and again, I was not used to the kind of research that this required. Yeah. You know, if you're doing a scene and a person is smoking a cigarette, and because everybody smoked, well, at least one person should be smoking a cigarette. Well, did they smoke Chesterfields in 1937? Yes, they did. What kind of suit was the man wearing? The dress that the woman's wearing. Does she have seam stockings or unseamed stockings? What cars were they driving? What the heck is a Hupmobile? Somebody's driving a Hupmobile. So research can be fun, but it's also going down this hole, and you can kind of fall in love with your research. And you have to know, A, when to stop doing it, and B, what to leave out. Research ought to be like the proverbial iceberg. You can see 15% of it and 85% of it is below the water.
Of course, and you don't want to be an information dump, because then people lose track of the story.
Yeah. Right. You can't dump truck in all this stuff you learn. You say, this is really cool. This is really cool. Yeah, but does it advance either the plot or something about the characters, or is it just some facts that you enjoy? Now, you can work in, I needed to get a character from Hollywood to downtown Los Angeles in 1937, and the most obvious way to do it, and the way people did it, they took the red car, which was the electric streetcars. Well, I wanted to know what are the stops on the route, because I'm going to have people getting on and getting off, because somebody getting on is important to the plot. So these are sort of the minutia that you use as part of the description in the narrative. And hopefully it comes out as not being too dense, and also it better be accurate.
Paul, were you able to walk the locations you have in your book? Since how many of them still exist in LA and those places?
Very good question. I lived in Los Angeles for 13 years, and I knew of many of the locations that didn't exist anymore. And I used the internet to check it out and to get photographs and videos of what it would have looked like then. There are certain buildings, like at Hollywood and Vine, an office building that still exists, that Will Rogers had an office in at the time, barbershop that was there. Doesn't matter to me that the barbershop's not still there, but it played a role in the plot. So, yeah, there's a lot of those little things that go into it.
So in your opinion, why is it that Hollywood always seems to be the target every time there's a fascism rise or something like that?
There were a lot of German Americans in Southern California, 95% of whom were very loyal to the United States, but a group of whom, almost all men, but not all men, had been in World War I, which they still called the Great War because there hadn't been World War II yet, and who had an allegiance to their homeland. And they had German restaurants and German meeting halls, Alt Heidelberg downtown, the Deutsche Haus. And some of these groups started as sort of friendship societies, but as from 1933 on, when Hitler took over in Germany and freedoms were being eroded there, and he was starting on the path to the Holocaust and the path to a world war, it had an impact on, again, this small group in percentages, but a very dangerous group of not only German Americans, but other people who were attracted to this cause. And it was dangerous. It was dangerous.
Now, being that the topic and the subject behind the story in this book, it's relevant to today and what's going on today in America, are you sort of ready for any sort of backlash or people that dislike maybe how you approach your writing in the story?
Well, of course, I don't know what the reaction to the book is going to be at this point. We're recording this a week before the book comes out. The trade reviews all are very positive and seem to indicate that there is something important going on here, even though, as I said earlier, it started as an entertainment. Everybody can draw whatever they want, from fiction or nonfiction. And I can't be concerned about that. I think most writers write for themselves. What am I interested in? What can I learn in researching and writing this? And I'm happy with the way it's come out.
Let me go back to something you said earlier. You said you had the questions, you had to figure out the plot. Did you have the plot when you put it all together, or did you just write it and then said, okay, what's the ending going to be? Or I know the ending here. What's going to happen next? Did you know where it was going to go, is the question.
I did not know where it was going to go. And generally, I fully outline a book before I write it. I once asked the great Elmore Leonard if he outlined, and he said, if I knew the ending of the book before I started, I'd never write it. So maybe I learned something from that. But I knew what the first act would be. I knew when Einstein and Chaplin and Sergeant Georgianne Robinson would have their quest defined, but I then let it tell me and let the characters tell me, okay, what are the complications in the second act? What are the reversals of fortune for the main characters? Where are they at their lowest point? And the internal conflicts. Einstein was very well known as a lifelong pacifist. I had to put him in a situation where he had to do something that would cause violence because it would be so hard for him to do. And those things just sort of naturally and organically came to me out of the plot and the characters as the story moved on.
Now, you've written quite a few legal thrillers in the past, and I'm just wondering if you experience your characters the same way when you write these legal thrillers as compared to something like this, where the characters are actually, they were alive. They're real people that existed, and you're taking off of their history.
I think in Midnight Burning, with Chaplin, Einstein, Sergeant Robinson, Charles Lindbergh, William Randolph Hearst, Ben Mankiewicz, the director-producer in Hollywood, George Giesling, the real German consul in Los Angeles, Joseph Goebbels, who makes a cameo appearance, William Dudley Pelley, who was the real-life American fascist leader who called himself the American Hitler. He thought that was a high compliment, I guess, to call himself that. With all of them, unlike my Jake Lasseter legal thrillers, my Solomon versus Lord legal capers, I felt a burden. I felt a responsibility to be true to the characters, not to go for, say, a cheap laugh where Lindbergh is concerned, even though he was in many circumstances a total idiot, but to try to be as realistic and credible as I could.
During the writing of Midnight Burning, which, as you said, was like a 20-year process doing, and compared to doing the Lasseter series and other books, how do you think the process of writing this book has changed you?
It's hard to go back to doing a murder trial that comes entirely out of my head, because it's like, what difference does that make? I'm just finishing the second book. Behind Midnight Burning comes the second Einstein Chaplin thriller set in 1940, though this time in New York, where there was a Nazi spy ring. Yes, they're going to be against the Nazis again. And Einstein, as in real life, in 1939 and 40, has another ethical quandary. Can he urge FDR to start an atomic bomb research program, because over in Berlin, the Nazis are way ahead of us? So I'm going to continue with these fellows for a while.
Well, I was going to ask a question about a sequel, if this was going to be a series, because, Chaplin had a famous life, right? He developed over time. He started, like you say, in London, and he ended up where he was, and Einstein is Einstein. So I was trying to figure out how do you continue to merge these characters together as time as they are changing too. I mean, they're getting older. Their fame is their fame, I guess, and it's just has its moments. So I was just kind of wondering, how did you piece together a sequel based upon their lives from 7 years, now I guess it's 7 years before, 1937, right? Is that
37 is Midnight Burning.
They met in 33, yeah.
Right. And the second book is 1940. And in 1940, the book starts on October 31st, Halloween. Why? The Great Dictator premiered in New York on that night. And of course, The Great Dictator is Chaplin taking down Hitler and Mussolini with satire.
Very famous.
It's a movie that still holds up today, a little bit of broad, some slapstick humor, but it's a great work of art. And it can be watched in 2025, and it premiered October 31, 1940. This movie, by the way, did not make him a hero in Berlin, so there are some ramifications to that. I just took the same characters, it's 3 years later, and put them in a new situation in New York. There's a real Nazi spy ring called the Fritz Duquesne spy ring, 33 Nazi spies. And there is a nuclear research program that Einstein is going to dabble in for a little bit. It's the same two guys with some new challenges.
Well, let me go with that then. So, most books, the hero's got the buddy, right? He's got the foil, right? Holmes and Sherlock and Watson. So how did you build their relationship? Were they buddies? Were they friends? Were they peers? What was their dynamic?
Well, they're equals. And one of the reasons at least in my take on it, that they could be so at ease with each other is neither one was in awe of the other in the sense, oh, I'm tongue-tied because I'm with Einstein or with Chaplin. There's a real moment, and I'm not going to be able to do this quote exactly, but in the first chapter of the book, when the two of them walk into the Los Angeles theater for the opening of City Lights, there's a crowd of 25,000 people who just want to get a look at Chaplin. They don't know Einstein's going to be there. They just want to get a look at Chaplin was this greatest entertainer in the world, the most famous entertainer in the world. And there was no television to sit home and watch, 1931. And the two men get out of the limousine, and Einstein says to Chaplin, I'm going to do the best I can.
This is a famous quote. I got a degree in broadcasting and film. I remember this quote in this picture.
You remember it? Maybe you can clean it up.
I'll correct you.
Something to the effect that they all think they know you through your art and they love you for it. And Chaplin's reply was, but your fame is greater. They don't understand a word you say and they still love you. Yeah. So it's something to that effect.
Einstein said, people understand you without you saying a word. And Chaplin said back, people love you, they have no idea what you're saying, basically.
That's exactly the gist of it. Yeah. And 20 years ago, I would have remembered that.
I had to go back and look it up in my book. So
okay, that was quick. So they were at ease with each other. And they both were committed to social justice, before and after fascist movements swept across Europe.
Now, let's see. The book comes out on September 16th. Are you planning a lot of book signings and outings to meet readers and other writers during this time?
I do like the cover, too, by the way. I was to mention the cover.
Thank you. In author school, they tell you whenever you're on a podcast, you have to hold up the book.
Yeah.
Now, there is no author school, but there should be. And that's what I would tell authors to do. Yes, Midnight Burning comes out on September 16th in a trade paperback, an ebook, an audio book with a great narrator, Malcolm Hillgartner. And I'm here in Santa Barbara. I'll be doing a bunch of events around here and a bunch of podcasts. And I look forward to hearing back from people. Love to get emails from readers or Amazon reviews, including even ones that I once got an Amazon review. I'm just going to go on a little tangent here. One star. I did not order this book. Anyway, other than that, love hearing from readers.
Are you set up on social media then, and you have a website? Let's give that out so people can find you.
Yes, it's paul-levine.com. I'm on Twitter at Jake Lassiter, my other series. I'm on Facebook. So love hearing from readers. Love talking to you two guys. You've done this before. Good questions.
Only the second show we've ever done.
Yeah. We're rookies.
Keep at it.
Yeah.
Al used to have hair. And now he's
oh, boy. Long time
sorry.
ago.
It's a hair joke.
You've been around doing this for quite a while and doing it quite well. But what keeps you writing? What keeps you going?
I thought I had quit a couple of years ago with a book called Early Grave. Retired Jake Lassiter after about 15 books. And then I couldn't figure out what to do. I was very edgy and unhappy. Though I had this idea back in my head, as you suggested, for almost 2 decades. And I came to the conclusion that writing is basically a virus. And it's incurable. And if you are a storyteller at heart and you've been writing or painting or any of the creative arts, but storytelling particularly, you can't stop. If you stop, you get a fever. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't want to stop, and I'd like to keep telling stories. And if they have some thematic material that's important to people's lives, so much the better.
Midnight Burning, an Einstein Chaplin thriller. Paul Levine's been our guest, the author. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.